Hello everyone. I wanted to make a video to talk about something that I think is very important in the game we all love, and that is the necessity and importance of something that is universally derided and hated by players: Landscrew and Variance. For definition, Landscrew is generally understood as a loss derided from either too much mana, too little mana, or through no deck building fault of your own, too little of one or more of your colors, resulting in dead cards in your hand. If you are saying, say, blue, black, red, and are sitting on 3 double black spells and a single black source, as you stare at them throughout the game, it's an understandable frustration. Magic the Gathering was started in 1993, and its resource system is still unique, although it is unique because it's protected by copyright. Wizards aggressively will protect the copyright of their resource system. When you look at other games that try to make their own resources, they have to be fundamentally different. A good example would be Force of Will's Stone Pile. It is extremely similar to Magic's mana system, but it is in its own zone, its own deck. It's drawn from differently, and it's not fundamentally the same item, even though it is extremely similar. Another example of a similar but different system would be Pokemon's energy system, where a single energy would have to be actually attached to the Pokemon specifically and could not be universally used. Where a forest in Magic can be used over and over and over, a Pokemon's energy is only for that one. It cannot be transferred, and when the Pokemon is knocked out, you lose all the energy attached to it. Because your resources are in the same deck as your spells and all your other action, this leads to a fundamental design flaw, which in practice can be very frustrating, but it's also necessary to ensure that the game can be played by anyone of any skill level at the higher levels. A player in a game with no variance, such as chess, will almost always lose to a more experienced player because there's no outside variance, there's no other mitigating factor. Magic doesn't have that problem. A person on his first day could get a very good draw with a very favorable matchup against a seasoned veteran and take a win. There are ways around the Demon of Landscrew, for the most part. The biggest one is actually in your deck construction. If you want to make sure that you're hitting your mana as quickly as possible, you can play green. If you want to make sure that you can get away from a flood situation, blue or red, which have a lot of card drawing and card selection. These can help you deal with a flood situation as well as a drought by drawing into the lands you need to get out of those unfortunate circumstances. Another way is to build your deck around the idea that you will get flooded or you will not draw that many lands. If you play, say, mono green ramp and you expect to flood because you put 27, 28 lands in your deck with 8 mana creatures and acceleration, you will see a lot of lands in your game, but you will also cast your 8 drops on turn 4, and that's by design. It's to play around the problem inherent in the system. Another idea is to play a deck that does play a lot of lands but benefits from playing them, such as back in the old Zendikar days, you could play a deck with step links and plated GOP as well as fetch lands and expect to hit multiple lands a turn. Getting all those redundant +2/+2s just helped when you wanted to hit all your land drops. The other example is to expect to not draw that many lands, using your mulliganing aggressively to put 2 or 3 lands in your opening hand when you only play 21 or 22 if you have a deck that has a converted mana cost average of about 1.5 to 2. This plays into it perfectly in that you really don't want that many more lands, but you're statistically unlikely to draw more of them. That brings the fundamental question, is Landscrew bad? Or is Landscrew bad for Magic? The easy answer is, what side of the table are you on? If you're the side that's getting screwed, it's very easy to say it's very bad. However, if you are the 3-month player who is playing against someone who's been in the game since Ice Age, who always wins every week that you play against him in F&M, you might have a different view, taking those variance wins. Back to the analogy of chess versus Magic. Statistically, you are not Bobby Fischer. You are not going to beat Bobby Fischer. You are not even close to on his level. Statistically speaking, you're going to need all the help you can get. Your opponent flooding out is all the help you can get sometimes. When you're in a large venue with a lot of very seasoned players, matches more often than not end up who drew a land when they needed a creature, who drew their 3rd land on turn 3 and who didn't. These are very unfortunate if it happens to you, but they are very necessary. On the same note, you're also not John Finkel, but if you sit down across from John Finkel, you are not 99.9% likely to lose. Variance is the item that makes that a possibility. You might be very good, you might be very new, but one way or the other, if both players' plays are optimal, it usually comes down to who drew their lands, when they drew it, when they played it, the optimal play pattern, and mitigating your play mistakes. There are things in Magic that aren't actually variants, although people will act like they are. A silver bullet card, such as a Leyline of the Void in your opening hand, is not variance. Variance is something that neither of you had any control over. No one controls if a Dredge player in Vintage doesn't get his Bazaar and mulligans to Oblivion. That's variance. However, if you're playing in a high-level event and your opponent main decks 4 Leyline of the Voids, that's not variance. That's just bad luck. The main thing about understanding how to mitigate your losses to variance is understanding how well you need to construct your deck. If you know your opponents are playing a lot of Graveyard Hate and you brought Dredge anyway, that's not a loss to variance. Much more often than not, games come down to who played the fewest mistakes, who played the most optimal play lines, as well as who saw their lands when. In a game where both players see the right amount of lands on the right turns, it all comes down to play. It all comes down to optimal play. It is very important to understand that, as they said in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, it is very possible to make no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. At the end of the day, I still feel that variance is necessary for Magic. Landscrew and Landflood and Color Screw are, by definition, the largest and most constant form of variance that a player will experience while playing the game. It is frustrating and it can be very aggravating, especially if you're at a high-level event and prizes are on the line. But understand that Magic is not chess, that variance is a good thing, and is necessary to keep the game alive and competitive for years to come.
Just watch it again one more time. Watch it again.
Watch it again. One more time. Watch it again, or I'll break your back. Watch it again, or I'll punch your face. You're gonna accept the kids' movie, or I'll kill you.